Hello and welcome to another episode of Pigskin Talk. I'm your host, Collin Zink, with the man, the myth, the legend, KC Cox. And there has been a murder in the NFL this past week and some other interesting games as well. Baker Mayfield going to the Rams for one, and playoff pictures starting to come into play. But the
The
murder
murder wouldn't have happened to be the Indianapolis Colts, would it? Is
It is the murder of the Indianapolis Colts. Now that because um, Dallas really took it to them in the fourth quarter. Um, 33 unanswered points in the final quarter, and the rest of the game was pretty close. But Dallas decided to play Dallas Cowboy football in the fourth quarter. The final score was 50-19. With
54-19, yeah.
but yeah, Prescott went 20 for 30 for 170 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Pollard led the ground game with 12 carries for 91 yards and 2 touchdowns. CeeDee Lamb led in receiving, shockingly. Notice my sarcasm, with 5 receptions, 71 yards, and 1 touchdown. Matt Ryan for the Colts went 21 for 37, 233 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. Jonathan Taylor, 21 carries, 82 yards, no touchdowns. And Pierce led the receiving yardage with 4 receptions, 86 yards, and 1 touchdown. So, did you watch that game, Casey? What did you see?
Actually, I didn't actually have a chance to watch that game. But I did get to talk to some people that did watch it, and they said at first it looked kind of scary for the Cowboys. It looked like it was, maybe going to be one of those what you call a trap game where the Cowboys went in and they were overlooking Jeff Saturday and the Colts
Yeah.
on a Sunday, and but then in the fourth quarter they turned on the Cowboy magic and locked it down, and said they scored 33 points in the fourth quarter, and I was like, what? Like I had the game on my phone and I was watching the score update, and I saw 21-19 Cowboys, and I shut it off and I went, oh, I don't even want to see this disappointment. And then I went to look at the final and it's 54-19, and I was like, huh? And then I got to looking into it, and the Cowboys scored 33 points in the fourth quarter. The Washington Commanders, the Cleveland Browns, the Houston Texans, the Tennessee Titans, I believe the Indianapolis Colts, and like 3 or 4 other teams haven't even scored 33 points this season. One of those being
Yeah,
the LA Rams.
I saw something about that. Uh, yeah, I saw some of the score updates too, where Indianapolis was winning 10-7 at one point, and I thought that was impressive. But Dallas, impressive. Total yards, Dallas had 385 yards compared to Indianapolis's 309 yards. First downs, Dallas had 23, Indianapolis had 18. Third downs, Dallas went 7 for 13, Indianapolis 4 for 13. Fourth downs, Cowboys 1 for 1, Colts 3 for 3. So, other than the fourth quarter, it seemed like a pretty good game. uh, so, and one interesting thing is that in the NFC playoff picture, while we're talking about Dallas, Dallas is the 5th seed at 9-3, and the Buccaneers are the 4th seed.
Hey, buddy.
And the Buccaneers are at the 4th seed at 6-6, which makes no sense to me. I mean, why is there a 6-6 team above a 9-3 team? I do not know. But another surprise that happened in the NFC was Baker Mayfield got waived by the Panthers and picked up by the Rams. And 40 hours later, he led the Rams on a 98-yard touchdown drive to beat the Raiders 17-16. Obviously, I don't think Baker Mayfield had enough time to learn the whole playbook, so he must have pulled out some heck of a Sooner magic there in that game because he went 22 for 35, 230 yards, and one touchdown. Cam Akers led the day in rushing, 12 carries, 92 yards, and one touchdown. And Baker Mayfield's favorite target, a new target on the Rams, is Skowronek, whatever his last name is. He had 7 receptions for 89 yards and no touchdowns. Um, I don't know what happened to Baker Mayfield, why the Panthers had him at a third string quarterback, but he played like a starter in that game. Um, Derek Carr went 11 for 20, 137 yards, no touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. Jacobs ran the ball for 27 carries, 99 yards, and one touchdown. And Devontae Adams had three receptions for Devontae Adams, 71 yards, and no touchdowns. You think that Devontae Adams would be more involved in that game? I mean, the Raiders are 5-7. Well, they're 5-8 right now, but um, yeah, Baker Mayfield put it on the. They didn't. I wouldn't say put it on. They came back to beat the Raiders, but it was one heck of a performance by Mayfield to say the least.
Right, yeah, and I was gonna say when I saw the Rams picked up Baker Mayfield, I said, "What in the hell are the Rams doing?" They made a bad decision with Matt Stafford. That is plain and obvious, clear as day. I mean, yeah, he led them to one Super Bowl, but then, I mean, what has he done really since this season? It's been kind of a crap season for the whole team. Um, I was like, what are they doing? What are they trying to do? Baker Mayfield hasn't proven that he's a quarterback you can really build a team around. Look how many teams he's bounced around already. So,
Yeah,
in his short career. So it didn't really make sense to me that a high caliber team like the Rams would be looking at such a mediocre quarterback in the NFL at a time where they need wins. But then he came off the bench and he freaking led them to a victory. So evidently they know something that nobody else does.
yeah. To be fair, Matthew Stafford's on injured reserve, and he's got a supposedly a neck injury of some kind. So Baker Mayfield's probably not going to be the starter for long.
Well,
But
yeah, it'd be a pain in my neck too to wake up every morning knowing that I'm a part of a losing team after I led them to a Super Bowl. Just saying.
yeah, I ex- we all probably expected the Rams to perform well this season, but um, uh, going back to Dallas, I think hasn't OBJ confirmed that he's going to play for Dallas yet?
Actually, he has not confirmed it yet, by what I have heard. And
Hmm.
actually, from what I've heard from from sources kind of close to the situation, Dallas Cowboys fans, season ticket holders, such things of that nature. Um, Actually, when they sent him to their trainers, to their doctors to get his physical done, his physical actually turned out to be a shit physical. Um, he wasn't quite in the shape that he was touting that he is in. The doctors didn't think he was quite ready to play ball yet at the level that he needs to be able to play at.
Yeah,
And they told Jerry Jones, by my understanding, that they would be surprised to see him play before mid-January, which would mean a run to the NFC Championship before we ever even got to see him play. Um, so Jerry Jones has said he is not very confident in signing OBJ right now. Yes, he would love it to work and love it to fit, but all the pieces of that contract have to fit in order for it to make sense for them long term. The only thing looking positive on that note is that he has also said it to that same respect that they're not looking to sign him if they sign him. They're not looking for an immediate necessarily out of him, but they would be looking at how he would help them long term say next season or the season after. So they're possibly, if they do sign him, it's going to be a smaller contract if he agrees to it, and it's going to be based on the fact that he will come in pretty much full strength next season or 2 or 3 weeks into the season, maybe. I think there's still a lot more rehab that the Cowboys want to see on that ACL before they actually let him touch the field. Even though OBJ has told Micah Parsons, I can be ready to play in 5 weeks.
Yeah.
There's people within the Cowboys organization that say it needs to be a minimal 5 weeks, if not even possibly, week 1, week 2 of next season before he actually gets out there and has the full amount of reps that he is used to having.
Yeah. I lost my train of thought. Yeah, I saw that OBJ said that he doesn't want to play in the regular season right now, and that he wants to play more in the postseason. He basically said that the regular season is boring, and that he wants to go in when it counts. And I'm reading that, and I'm thinking, oh, so you're not with you don't want to be with the team in the long run. You want to be with them for when you want to win a championship. Uh, yes, ACL comes into play, so if the Cowboys do make it to the NFC Championship game, then he'll probably play maybe, but the Cowboys would have to get past the wild card round first.
Right. And
Yeah,
that right now is looking kind of tough. But, and here's the other thing too, if they bring in OBJ and they do sign him, OBJ's got to know that he's probably not going to play right away. You got to look at the talent that they have getting ready to come back off of the injury roster that they had. You look at James Washington, he was a highly touted receiver out of Oklahoma State. He went to Pittsburgh to the Steelers, played there a few seasons with Mason Rudolph. He actually made some noise when he was brought into the games with the Steelers. The Cowboys liked enough of what they saw with him in film that they actually made the trade for him and brought him in, even with the injury. Um, and he should be coming back and ready to play within the next week or two, by my understanding. Like, he should have been ready to go a week or two ago, but they went ahead and gave him a little extra time because Michael Gallup was coming back. And so they had CD Lamb, they had Gallup, they have some tight ends that were doing all right. But as they get ready to make that run deep into the playoffs, if they're going to, they're going to need a receiver the caliber of a James Washington, who's coming back off of a broken ankle, I do believe.
yeah. The Cowboys are going to be stacked at wide receiver if they bring OBJ. I mean, they are already stacked, but when you have CD Lamb, Michael Gallup, and uh, uh, OBJ on the same field at the same time, that's almost like the Buffalo Bills situation. You got too many weapons to pay attention to.
Yep. Yeah, the defense isn't going to be able to pay attention to them all, and then they do take and they add you know, the James Washington to that mix
Yeah.
as a fourth receiver. I mean, I could see Michael Gallup being moved over to a tight end if they need to use James Washington, and it could be James Washington, OBJ, and CD Lamb as your top three receivers, and then Gallup being either that fourth receiver or even thrown in sometimes in the tight end because he can run some tight end routes.
Hmm. Yeah. Um, so looking at the playoff picture right now in the AFC, it's a tight race for the number one seed. The Bills are right now the number one seed at 9-3, and the Chiefs are the two seed at 9-3. And the Bills play the Jets this upcoming week. That's going to be a good matchup. The Jets are 7-5, and they already beaten the Bills once earlier in the year. But and they play the Broncos, which we all know how that's going to go for Denver. It's already a dumpster fire over there. So, if anything, the Chiefs would stay at the number two seed. The Ravens have the three seed at 8-4. They play the Steelers this week. The Titans are the fifth seed at 7-5. They play the Jaguars, which I wouldn't be surprised if the Jaguars put up an upset against the Titans because they already did it against the Ravens a couple weeks ago. The Bengals have the fifth seed at 8-4, and they play the Browns this upcoming Sunday. That's the battle for Ohio. The Dolphins have the sixth seed, 8-4. They play the Chargers. Potentially another upset situation, as the Chargers are 6-6. The Patriots are the first team out as of now at 6-6, and they play the Cardinals this week. And like I said, the Chargers, they're at the number 9 spot, 6-6, and they play the Dolphins. So the AFC looks pretty competitive this year. Um, the Bills and Chiefs game in the playoffs are going to be quite interesting, especially if they meet each other in the AFC Championship game. That's going to be another shootout situation, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. It always is with those two teams as well. So we know it is. Um, those two teams, it doesn't matter how their records are, even if they're both doing bad, it's always a shootout. Always, always, always. I
Yeah,
don't think I've seen a game in the last 5 seasons between those two that it hasn't been a shootout at some point. So
yeah, yeah.
the, I think the bigger question is, at this point in the season, who do we think has the stronger division? Do we think the AFC or the NFC is the stronger? Because both seem to be highly competitive. I mean, you're looking at a Dallas Cowboys team that is 3 losses into a season and fifth in the freaking playoff rankings.
yeah. Um, yeah, Dallas is getting up there. They probably won't be the 102 seed, but they could potentially be the third seed because the 49ers just lost Jimmy Garoppolo for the rest of the season. So, because
Yep, Jimmy G down again.
yeah, he has a broken foot,
Yep.
and Brock Purdy is going to come in and try to finish off the season for the Niners.
Now, here's what I will say. Do not, I will not anyway, be surprised if somehow the San Francisco 49ers still end up pulling out 3 or 4 wins over the next, 5 weeks of the season.
Yeah,
Um, and I say this because of the backup quarterback, Brock Purdy. That quarterback played 4 years at Iowa State as the Iowa State quarterback. He had the best starting record as a quarterback at Iowa State, I think, in the last 10 or 15 years. Every time, I'm an Oklahoma State Cowboys fan, every time Iowa State played Oklahoma State and Brock Purdy was at quarterback, I think Oklahoma State only beat Brock Purdy one time.
wow.
That man is very, very intelligent behind the ball. He's very intelligent behind center. He knows his offenses as long as he listens to the coach. Because Cliff Kingsbury is a very, very good, very, very good very, very, very good coach. If
Yeah,
you listen to him, I think them two might have a connection, and you could possibly see a moving on from Jimmy G because of the broken ankle or the broken foot, and him starting to get up there with his age, becoming a veteran quarterback. How well does he rehabilitate from that injury has to become the question of the 49ers. And they have a young quarterback in Brock Purdy who showed in college, if you give him the right system, the man can make it a dangerous system.
so what you're saying is that Brock Purdy could potentially jump Jimmy G.
Potentially. I think if he does as good as he did in college and his talent level is what everybody thinks it is, and I believe it is, I believe that he could possibly, maybe not this season. I mean, maybe not, next season going in. Maybe the 49ers might keep Garoppolo to maybe see how he rehabs from that injury and see if he can come in and give Brock Purdy one more year of leadership and give Brock Purdy someone to learn behind. But
Yeah,
I think that if they feel like at any point Jimmy G is not Jimmy G anymore because that broken foot didn't rehab the way they hoped it would, and he hoped it would. So he no longer has the step that he used to have. They have to then come to make that decision of Purdy is faster. I think that already. I already think Purdy has a step on Jimmy G with speed. Now, Purdy is not that much of a pocket presence, move around in the pocket. He will move, he will juke, he will jive, don't get me wrong, but he
Mm-hmm.
likes to try to stand in that pocket and be as still as he can and find somebody to throw to. But if he
Yeah,
does have to take off with his legs, the man is dangerous.
yeah. Just look back at his college days. I think he's beaten Oklahoma
Yeah,
at Norman.
yeah. And
Yeah,
I think he beat him on a run in touchdown. So,
so, yeah. He's a dangerous quarterback for sure. And he played Oklahoma in the Big 12 championship game one year, so he certainly has potential. So the NFC playoff standings right now, the Eagles have the number one seed at 11-1, and they play the Giants this week. One of the interesting things about this two seed, the Vikings, they're 10-2. They play the Lions, but the Vikings are considered the underdogs going into Detroit, which I find quite odd because Detroit is 5-7 and the Vikings are 10-2. I don't exactly agree with the NFL saying that the Vikings are underdogs. Uh, I I mean, I just think the Vikings are just too overpowering the Lions, and the Lions would have to worry. The Lions would have to worry about their former tight end T.J. Hawkinson and uh, Alshon Jefferson. So
yeah, I don't see, yeah, no. I don't. What is the NFL thinking trying to say that they're the underdogs playing the Lions?
yeah, uh, when all that's yeah. The 49ers are the third seed right now. They're 8-4. They play the Buccaneers this Sunday, and the Buccaneers are at the fourth seed at 6-6. Which, this past Monday, Tom Brady led another miraculous comeback. This
Yeah,
time
I saw
against
that.
this time against the Saints.
Yeah.
The Bucks were down like by 13 in the fourth quarter with 3 minutes left, and then Tom Brady's just all like, all right, I'm going to activate GOAT mode now. And then he just goes off. I mean,
Yeah, I
this,
think that defense fell asleep more than Tom Brady activated GOAT mode, though, in all honesty.
yeah. Uh, I, I can understand why the Saints thought they had it in the bag. But um, this is the second time Tom Brady's came back from 13 plus points down in the fourth quarter. The first time it happened was against the Falcons in Super Bowl 51. So, if this has taught the Saints anything, it's to not sleep on Tom Brady all, until the clock hits all zeros, basically. um, what I was going to say, but the Buccaneers almost lost that game because their left guard or left tackle kept holding. I was watching that game in the second half, and after he got called for holding twice on that drive, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking either take him out or something because he's going to cost you guys the game. Because Tom Brady threw that touchdown pass to Julio Jones and it was called back for holding. A few plays later, Brady threw a check down to his running back and he got in the end zone. So, um, that was a heck of a comeback by Brady, and this was the first time he swept the Saints since joining the Bucks in the regular season. So, props to Brady there. Like I said, the Cowboys have the fifth seed at 9-3. They play the Texans this week, so it's the battle for Texas, so to speak. But that's going to be another big win for the Cowboys. I mean, I don't see a way for the Texans to win that game, especially after what Dallas did to Indianapolis. Houston Houston was probably watching that game like, oh crap.
They knocked Jeff Saturday into next Sunday.
Right? I mean, uh, I it's like Dallas was all like, okay, let's just start playing for real now. We've had our fun messing with them. Like, or they're all like, oh, you think you're gonna win? That's so cute. Hold my beer. And yeah. um, and the
I think they
giant.
remembered that they had OBJ in the building watching.
Oh yeah, OBJ was there. Yeah,
They went, oh crap, we have OBJ watching. We better actually perform.
yeah,
We only need to do it for one quarter. Don't worry, we got this in the fourth. Watch this shit.
yeah.
33 points later.
Yeah, Indianapolis fans left that stadium just stunned. Like they have no idea what hit them.
They left the stadium wishing it was still Saturday.
Right? Saturday left wishing it was Friday.
Yeah. Wishing he could do walkthroughs all over again.
Yeah. The Giants have the 6th seed at 7-4-1, and they play the Eagles this upcoming Sunday, which
Man, I've never been much of. Man, I don't think I've ever been more of a Giants fan than I am right now. Hoping that the Giants can pull it out against the Eagles.
really? Huh. So, what makes you think that you want the Giants to beat the Eagles?
Well, because we've already got a game against the Giants as Cowboys. And if the Giants beat the Eagles, and then the Cowboys can beat the Eagles, then we're each going to have a match against each other, and it's going to come down to something like point differential, points for, points against type shit to break the tie. And I
Yeah.
think with the way the Cowboys are playing later in the season, and the fact that they just put up 54 against the Indianapolis Colts and only allowed 19, I think that may be what boosts the Cowboys above the Eagles for what could be the number one in that division.
Yeah, most definitely. But the Giants are going to have to pull something off because the Eagles are on fire.
Yeah, they're on a tear.
Yeah. Now, if the Eagles can continue to hold on to the ball and not make as much mistakes like they did against the Commanders, then they'll be just fine. But we'll see what happens. The 7th seed in the NFC, the Seahawks have that, and they're 7-5, and they play the Panthers this week. So, the Panthers. Who are their options at quarterback? They have Sam Darnold and PJ Walker. Okay, in my personal opinion, Sam Darnold didn't cut it with the Jets. So, I mean, PJ Walker was decent. So maybe you start PJ Walker against the Seahawks and see what happens.
I think of the two quarterbacks they have for options right now, I think PJ Walker is the best option. He has shown the most consistency.
Yeah, he can scramble pretty good too. He's not Patrick Mahomes or
Oh no, by no means.
no, but I mean he's good enough to hang in there. The first team out right now are the Commanders at the 8th spot. They are 7-5-1, and they have a bye week. So basically, their hopes of a playoff berth this week hangs in the balance of what happens this week. So it might be a couple of upsets that needs to happen, or if the Lions pull up an upset against the Vikings, and the Lions could move up to the 8th spot, and the Commanders would move down because the Lions are at the 9th spot at 5-7. So this is the wait and see week for the Commanders because uh, maybe they would have a chance if the Bucks beat the 49ers, which would move the Niners down. So it's a wait and see. I think the the Commanders' quarterback from what's his name? Uh, Old Dominion quarterback guy. Let's just call him that for now. He's doing pretty decent. He beat the Eagles in that one game a few weeks ago. So I think he's the right guy for the Commanders right now. Especially with Winston. No, not Winston. Wentz still hurt. So yeah, the NFL is going to be pretty competitive in the next few weeks going into the final weeks of the NFL. So let's switch gears here and move on to college football.
Oh wait, hold on, just a second. I just got breaking news. Denver just announced they're going to release their docudrama series, reality series. It's going to be released as a rated R horror film, just so that Denver Bronco fans won't watch it. Called Dumpster Fire in Denver. It's the story of the 2022 Denver Broncos and beyond.
I got to look this up now.
I'm joking.
Oh, I thought you were being serious. I'm like, are you for real? No freaking way.
Had to do it because that's exactly what it is over there. It's a dumpster fire.
Yes. I thought you were for real there for a second. I was about to, look that up. But speaking of that, dumpster fire in Denver, where the firefighter Russell Wilson is having a difficult time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, one interesting breaking news in college football is Deion Sanders has been named the head coach for Colorado football, and in his career at Jackson State, he went 27-5 in his 5 seasons there. Finished the 22 season with a 12-0 record, which was the first time Jackson State went undefeated in their school history. And Colorado finished the 22 season with a 1-11 record. So by the numbers, it looks like it's a good hire. I saw a quote.
Well, besides the numbers, Deion Sanders has also just dismantled what he built at Jackson State.
Oh yeah,
that shit to Colorado with him, because Schroeder Sanders is his quarterback. His running backs going with him. His wide receivers are going with him. His freaking both sons are going with him. Like he went into the Colorado locker room and met with the players, and he literally told them players, I'm the head coach. Schroeder Sanders is the quarterback. I'm the coach here, and I'm bringing my luggage with me. So y'all players might as well just go jump in the portal.
Yeah, I saw that quote, and I'm sitting there debating. I'm like, did he really say this?
Yes, he really said some of y'all players might as well just go jump in the portal because I'm bringing my luggage with me, and we're gonna win games. Basically, is what he told them. Mm-hmm.
Okay, then.
So he's bringing the big wide receivers that did everything at Jackson State that still had years of eligibility left, quarterback that has years of eligibility left, running back that has years of eligibility left. I think some defensive linemen and offensive linemen have already said that they're entering the portal with the intentions of transferring to Colorado to go be with Coach Sanders. So yeah, like he's bringing a lot of guys with him. It's basically going to be Jacksonville State in Colorado uniforms.
Yeah, they're definitely going to be put to the test next season because their first game of the season will be at TCU.
Yep.
So, it's going to be quite a transition because Jackson State is in the FCS, and Deion Sanders is now going to be coaching in the FBS.
That's a major leap, not only for the coach but for the players. So I hope that all these players transferring over to Jackson or from Jackson State over to Colorado, I hope that their talent level is enough to get it done at the FBS level. Because at the FBS level,
Hmm.
if you don't get it done in the first season or two, you're gone.
Yeah.
Like, definitely, if you're a coach like Deion Sanders, you've got a big name. They've done a lot of ticket sales. Season ticket sales are at like $2 million in sales, the most they've ever had.
Hmm.
Their online merchandise had like $4.9 million or something like that in 24 hours of sales after Deion Sanders was announced the head coach. Like, they've got so many things. All their numbers just skyrocketed after the announcement of Deion Sanders becoming coach. So now, if Deion Sanders doesn't come in and coach and show that he's a good coach and lead this team to bowl games and to winning seasons, they will not stick behind Deion too long.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, they're basically being thrown to the wolves because, I mean, when you open up the season against TCU, uh, you better perform well. Speaking of bowl games, I didn't have this written down, but Kansas State is going to be playing Arkansas in the Liberty Bowl, and that's basically going to be their national championship game. If Kansas wins that game, you can expect them when they come back to Lawrence, they're going to have a parade.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because when was the last time Kansas had a bowl game? Like 2008 or something.
Something
So
like that.
yeah,
Maybe.
and
Hmm.
Oklahoma is going to be playing against Florida State in the Cheez-It Bowl, which, as a Sooner fan, honestly, OU has a chance that they're going to lose that game. I mean, they're 6-6. They uh, barely hung together against Oklahoma State. Uh, they lost to Texas Tech in overtime, the last game of the regular season. Uh, so OU's going to need to do some something to try to hang in there with Florida State. They might lose that game, honestly. Oklahoma State is going to be playing Wisconsin in the Guaranteed Rate Bowl, which will be at the Diamondback Stadium in Phoenix, Arizona, I think is where it's at.
Yes, it is.
So, yeah, I mean, what do you think of that Oklahoma State and Wisconsin matchup?
Well, now I don't. Before Spencer Sanders announced that he was leaving, and Mason Cobb announced that he was leaving, and Braylon Presley announced that he was leaving, and Trace Ford announced that he was leaving. Like, all these players have announced they're entering the transfer portal.
Wait, did you say Spencer Sanders is entering the transfer portal?
Yes, he is.
Wow.
He is entering the transfer portal to go play his 6th year of eligibility elsewhere. His
Wow.
COVID year, basically, is what it is. Um, why, I don't know. I think it has a lot to do with the way that the offensive play calling went this season. I also think that it's probably got a lot to do with him and Coach Gundy. I think sat down and had a talk, and I don't think Spencer's shoulder is going to hold up to be what it needs to be a star quarterback in a high caliber conference. And I think Gundy told him that and told him, like, look, you want to come back and play year 5? Cool, we're cool with it. We'll let you, but there's a good chance you may not start, depending on how these other guys do in training, because they do have freshman Rangel and freshman Gunner Gundy. So, I mean, when you got
Yeah,
two fresh meat quarterbacks behind what's been now a 4-year starter, um, there's a good chance when you're dealing with a shoulder injury that one of them new fresher talents step up and beat you for the starting job. And I don't think Sanders wanted to risk that. I think he's going to be looking to go somewhere where it's going to be a no-brainer. He's going to step in. He's going to start.
yeah.
I could see him going to Texas. He's from Texas.
Texas.
Texas's quarterback just entered the transfer portal as well. So
Yeah, but Texas is also going to be getting Archie Manning. So Art Manning, I think, could potentially be a freshman starter.
Yeah, he could be a freshman starter, but if Sanders was to go somewhere like that, that would just be somebody who's gotten the college experience
Yeah.
that Archie Manning could sit behind and learn for
Oh
one
yeah,
season.
most definitely. If now that you mention it, if Archie
That's
Manning sits behind Spencer Sanders and learns, Manning could be a dangerous quarterback moving
oh
on.
yeah, oh yeah,
Yeah.
because he would sit behind Sanders with a redshirt freshman as a redshirt freshman, and he would probably get to start in 4 games because I can almost guarantee you Spencer Sanders' shoulder is going to act up and he will miss 4 games. He will at least not start 4 games. He may play in every game, but he will come off the bench for at least 4 of them.
Yeah.
Just
Oh,
like he did this year, just like he did this year at Oklahoma State. And I think that's what Gundy told Sanders. And I think Sanders went, look, I appreciate the honesty and the relationship that we have. So instead of letting that get in between what we have, I'm just going to go search somewhere else where I know I can be a starter.
yeah. I'm looking at the comments here, and Jeff said, "Hey, so hello, Jeff. Well, thanks for watching the show." Um, Now, looking at some more important games coming that happened, USC played Utah in the Pac-12 championship, and I think Lincoln Riley got a rude awakening of what the Pac-12 can be because USC just got stomped by Utah, 47-24. um, Caleb Williams went 28 for 41, 363 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Jones led the way in rushing yards for USC with 15 carries, 35 yards, no touchdowns. And in receiving, Washington had 6 receptions, 93 yards, and 1 touchdown. Um, for Utah, Rising had went 22 for 34, 310 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Jackson had 13 carries, 105 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And Parks had 4 receptions for 88 yards and 1 touchdown. I think that Pac-12 championship game really um, um, exposed USC, so to speak. Uh, Lincoln Riley, I think it brought back what Lincoln Riley was at OU, and um, I really didn't think USC would have hung around in the playoff, especially what happened with them against Utah. And I think the committee made a right decision to not let USC in because of how demolished they were in that game. Yes, it was close for a little while, but Utah just put it on.
Well, and here's the thing: if you look back at USC's season, the only games they lost 1 game in the regular season against Utah by 1 point, and then they lost in the Pac-12 championship to Utah by 15.
Yeah,
Um, while everybody was pretty much on this USC's gonna win train, and I even was on that. I believe USC. I believe Caleb Williams, Lincoln Riley. I believe what they have is a better offense, a better defense. They have a better, well-rounded, put-together team. That was true until, and this is always gonna play something into most games, but I think it was a factor, and I think Caleb Williams was the better quarterback in that game until he took that hit and injured his hip. And
oh
then for
yeah,
the rest of the game, I don't even think he was at 50%. Every time he was going to the huddle, he was hobbling and like dragging that leg. He was like, he couldn't even hardly put any pressure down on that side. But he stayed out there and he played through it. That just shows how bad he wanted to win that game. But I think in the end, it ended up costing them that game. If they would have went to the backup quarterback, they may have actually stuck around and had a chance.
yeah. Um, total yards wise, it's completely like bipolar because Utah had 533 yards compared to USC's 419. So this this wasn't this didn't look like the number one offense Lincoln Riley had with OU in the past years. Uh, yes, Caleb Williams is a Heisman contender, but this is a different conference and different type of play. So Utah made them. Utah put that in their minds. This Pac-12 championship.
I don't know
Uh,
if it wasn't so much not the Lincoln Riley offense that we've seen with OU, because I felt like it was very much the same OU style offense we saw from Lincoln Riley. What I didn't feel like was that it was the same level of Alex Grinch defense that we've seen him bring to OU that made OU dominant.
oh yeah, yeah. Um, I mean, yeah, Alex Grinch's defense still needs some work because OU, yes, it improved OU's defense, but obviously there's some kind of weakness in there if you lose by 15 in a conference championship game.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I was saying. I don't believe the level of defense he brought to USC is the same defense he brought to OU, and I think that's because of the style of play you play against on the West Coast. I think he felt he needed to change his style a little bit, and in doing so, it weakened what he brought to the table.
Yeah. Looking at the Big 12 championship game, that was that was a close game. Um, Kansas State beat TCU 31-28. And if you want to talk about heart, you'd have to look at TCU's quarterback Max Duggan. I mean,
Yep, absolutely.
he was gassed in the fourth quarter. I mean, he tried he gave it out. He left it out on the field. I mean, you see him get up and he would be walking slowly back to the huddle and everything. When he got in the end zone that one drive, he stayed on the ground for a little bit because he needed some air. Uh, Max Duggan is not only have the big heart, but he's also your Heisman winner, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't doubt it either.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's the style of game you want to see in a championship, though. That's the style of play you want to see in a championship game, whether it's conference championship, national championship. It doesn't matter. You want to see your guys go out there when it matters the most and leave it all on the field. And I believe both Kansas State and TCU both did that.
hmm Um, I mean, listen to these stats. Duggan went 18 for 36, 251 yards, one touchdown and one interception, and he also led the TCU in rushing with 15 carries, 110 yards, and one touchdown. This dude really wanted that, and um, that's impressive. I wouldn't be surprised if he needed to get oxygen on the sidelines or something. This dude has heart, and he showed it out there on the field. And Johnson led the way in receiving for TCU with 4 receptions, 139 yards, and no touchdown. Um, in my opinion, Duggan is your FBS Player of the Year, not Caleb Williams. That's just my opinion. But but
I'd agree with that.
yeah, this dude has heart, and that's the bottom line to it. For Kansas State, Will Howard went 18 for 32, 199 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Deuce Vaughn had 26 carries, 130 yards, and one touchdown. And I believe he had another 50-yard touchdown run or so against TCU in the Big 12 championship game. Uh, that's due to his height and speed. I mean, he's small, but he's fast too. He can hide behind the line of scrimmage very easily. Uh, and Brooks the third led the way in receiving for Kansas State with 6 receptions, uh, 98 yards, and 0 touchdowns. So the purple bowl conference championship game, because both teams' main color is purple, was it was a spectacle to say the least, especially coming from Max Duggan. Um, Total yardage wise, TCU had 469 yards compared to Kansas State's 404 yards. Um, great effort by TCU, but Kansas State pulled it out. Which, if you look back on TCU's final drive of of regulation, um, TCU's running back, uh, he got across the goal line. The ball was across the goal line, but he was on top of his body, so maybe the officials didn't see that. See that, but I think the Horned Frogs got cheated with that no call touchdown. But TCU is in the college football playoff, so that's good for them. Now, looking at the SEC championship game, this was a game I expected this outcome to be. Georgia dominated LSU 50-30. It wasn't even close. Um, Georgia completely dominated from start to finish. LSU, in my opinion, never had a chance. Uh, Stetson Bennett went 23 for 29, 274 yards, four touchdowns. Milton, 8 carries, 113 yards, no touchdowns. And Bowers had 6 receptions, 81 yards, and 1 touchdown. Um, did you see that SEC championship game?
I didn't get to see any of the game, but again, I heard some of the highlights and got to see some of the highlights afterwards. I was
Yeah.
on the road traveling, so it was hard to watch any of the games. But I knew that game at the end of the day was going to be a Georgia blowout just because it's Georgia, and that's what Georgia does.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why I think they are the Hulk of the playoff right now. I'm For LSU played two quarterbacks in this game. Daniels went 16 for 24, 208 yards, 1 touchdown and 1 interception, and Nussmeier went 15 for 27, 294 yards, 2 touchdowns and 1 interception. Now I didn't watch the whole game, so I don't know why they played two quarterbacks, but nonetheless, it didn't work out for them. Williams led the way for rushing yards for LSU with 6 carries, 55 yards, and no touchdowns. And Neighbors led in receiving with 5 receptions, 128 yards, and 1 touchdown. Yardage wise, it was close. There were only a 20 yards difference. Georgia had 529 yards, and LSU had 549. So good offense on both sides of the ball, but at the end of the day, Georgia's Georgia, and they're going to dominate whoever's going to play in the SEC championship game. In my opinion, Georgia's kryptonite is Alabama, but
Luckily, they don't have to deal with Alabama in the playoffs this year.
right? I mean, considering what needed to happen for Alabama to even have a chance at the playoff, a lot of things needed to happen. Those things did happen, and Bama just came up short, which most of the country is very happy that Bama's not in the playoff.
I was gonna say I've only seen one person on social media that's upset about Alabama being not in the playoffs that I know personally.
Wow.
So, and that's just because they're a huge Alabama fan and they thought they had a chance when TCU lost and when USC lost, and I'm like, no, you're a 2-loss team, punk. You don't deserve to be in.
Yeah. Now, here's two games that circled on every college fan's calendar. The college football playoff. Number 1, Georgia taking on number 4, Ohio State. Michigan taking on number 3, TCU. Now, realistically, Georgia's gonna move on, but I would definitely love to see an Ohio State and Michigan national championship game. A championship game that's the game rivalry. That's gonna make some interesting fights to see in that game. Because Ohio State and Michigan already had a fight in the regular season against each other. So
right.
you can imagine.
Yeah. So
You can imagine there's going to be a whole bunch of security at that game if they ever meet each other in that championship game. But
Honestly, I'm going to call this a dark horse because TCU has impressed me. The more and the deeper and deeper into the season they went, I think this championship, the college football championship, is going to be Georgia TCU.
oh, okay. I could definitely see TCU beating Michigan, especially with a quarterback like Max Duggan.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
what I'm saying. That quarterback makes all the difference.
yeah,
When
uh,
he leaves his heart, literally leaves his heart on the field,
yeah,
the
yeah,
whole team gets behind that guy.
yeah. And even his teammates were trying to help him up because he was down on one knee in the end zone. They were trying to help him up, and he pushed him away. Says, "No, I'm good. I'm good." Because that
Right. So you
that
know that team's got
one
to be
showing
fully behind
weakness.
him.
Yeah. Um. So Georgia versus Ohio State. The spread, according to ESPN, is 6.5 points.
Georgia's a favorite.
Uh. Yeah, -6.5, and Ohio
Yep.
State has +6.5.
Damn.
So, in my
Mm.
in my
Yeah.
opinion, that's an understatement. I'm thinking it's going to be Georgia by 14 or at most by 21.
Wow, you think so, huh?
Yeah, I just think
You're not
Georgia.
impressed with Ohio State, really.
Yeah, no, I'm not really impressed with Ohio State at all compared against Georgia. I think Georgia's just too overpowered. But if Ohio State wants to pull off an upset, it's going to have to be their defense.
Yeah. This game is going to rely heavily on how Ohio State's defense responds to Georgia's offense.
Yeah,
Because if Georgia's offense comes out there and does what Georgia's offense does, and that Ohio State defense cannot gain traction early and make stops, it's going to be a long day for Ohio State. And I would be right on board with you to say 14-21, maybe even 28.
yeah,
But
but
But if that Ohio State defense causes a turnover on downs, causes them to punt, forces a fumble, and turns the ball over early in the game and gets momentum swinging their way,
mhm,
then this could very easily be a 3-point swing one way or the other.
yeah. Um, and the money line for this game, Ohio State has +215, and Georgia is -267. Um, ESPN matchup predictor, Georgia is favored by 58%, and Ohio State is at 41.9%. So numbers don't surprise those numbers don't surprise me right there.
Yeah, I
Um,
know.
yeah, speaking of the playoff, this is the first playoff in this college football playoff history where Alabama or Clemson is not in it.
Right, I know. I'm surprised. I really am. But then again, in a way, I'm happy because
Yeah,
this playoff is getting ready to expand to 12 teams.
yeah,
So now every playoff from here on out is going to be Alabama, Georgia, Clemson, Ohio State, Michigan, and then you throw in your Big 12 guys, your OSU, TCU, Texas, Kansas State. Like usually there's 3 or 4 toward the end of the year in the Big 12 that are always in the top 15. And if you can put 4 in the top 15 going into that last week of matchups to see who makes it into the top 12, you could easily have a quarter of the playoff being Big 12 representatives,
yeah,
depending on how they set that structure up, of course.
yeah. Hold on. Yeah, I completely agree with you. I am surprised that, kind of shocked that they put TCU at 3 and not at number 4 because they're a Big 12 team. But uh, nonetheless, um, TCU has a good shot to beat Michigan, and the spread for the Michigan and TCU game is 7.5 points, with Michigan being the favorite. So the money line for this is TCU is at +250, and Michigan at -320. in the ESPN matchup predictor is Michigan is favored at 66.5%. So if you watch that TCU and Purdue game, you saw some. I saw some similarities in what their offense runs. There was a few times where Michigan went under center and motioned two of their linemen to the left side of the ball and ran the ball to the left side. And Purdue recognized that and stopped that pretty well. So it's going to be about play recognition and defense for TCU because I think TCU is the underdog in the playoff, even though they're the number 3 spot. But yeah, I have Georgia beating Ohio State by at least 21 points, and I have TCU in an upset against Michigan by let's say 7 points. So that's going to do it for today's episode of Pigskin Talk. I'm Collin Zink, and that's my co-host Casey Cox, the man, the myth, the legend. We'll see you next week here on Pigskin Talk. Hopefully, we'll be back on here next Thursday. And remember, you don't just talk; you pigskin talk. Thanks for watching.
All right, guys, you have a good night. Thank you for joining us. Tune in next week for the next show. See you next time. KHLC Internet Radio Network.